Okay, I'm going to try and talk about Han, narrative, Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. There's so many things here, and here's an attempt to kind of make sense of it. And I'm stealing some of these ideas from you all because you had some really good posts on Han and Tolkien, and I really appreciate that. And so some of the ideas were this, like that. Okay, Han says we are losing this capacity to tell narrative, to understand narratives, to be narrative, and to have an imagination that kind of goes with that. Because modernity craves fast facts. It's disenchanted. It just wants the fast facts so I can like buy stuff, do stuff, have power, have control, have technology, jump to my ChatGPT and AI. We're just going to control things. We don't need to like risk uncertainty. And we have constant entertainment. Like I can just like binge watch and watch another episode and another TikTok video and another YouTube. And like that happens to me. And I'm like, why does that keep happening to me? Because I get seduced by these shallow stories. So there are stories, but they're like shallow and they don't like satisfy. You're like just feel sick. Whereas a deeper story that resonates, something like The Lord of the Rings, perhaps for some of us, it's like, wow, that's like, I'm starving for that. And so yeah, we get away from just like the quick facts, the craving, the addiction, the compulsion, and then like the thing that the things like things are just mute, like it's just a book, it's just a bunch of pages or whatever. And whereas Han is saying things are not mute, they speak, they mean something, they have a depth, and they matter. And so those are some of the ideas that I was getting. And so, and I want to say a few more things about this. Okay, this is not letting me. Okay, because I guess I'm gonna go ahead to my my phone cam. Let's see it. Okay, so hopefully this will be big enough. Sorry, this technology is not helping me here. Okay, let's make it a little bigger. Okay, and so if we think about it in terms of non-narrative, this is like our modern life, and then a narrative type of life that's like full of story. And so we don't, as modern people, we tend, like with the postmoderns, to say, I don't trust those narratives. Those are non-trustable master narratives. They're from like a myth. And some like of the new atheists will say like, oh, those are just Bronze Age myths that, basically idiots made them up. There's no reason to even read those stories. They're totally dumb. They have no scientific knowledge. They have no factual knowledge. Whereas the narrative way of looking at things like is to say those things are full of wisdom. Those things are full of thousands, tens of thousands of years of accumulated wisdom. And that's what a myth is. And that is a source of wisdom, a wisdom tradition, whether that's like from the Norse myths or the Buddhist or the Taoist or the Jewish, Hebrew, or the North American indigenous, and so forth. And so, whereas, this is the non-narrative view is like, okay, logic, fact, proposition. I need facts. I need a proposition. Like this is a scientific proof of such and such, a proposition, a fact. I can verify that. I can control that. I can control all How can I control all? By my technology. Technology is giving us more and more control over everything. And now AI is going to you know, put that on steroids. It's the ring. It's the machine. It's this desire for human control through technology. Which, I mean, obviously, I like technology. I'm using it right now, obviously, but it's something about this desire for control that's sapping the narrative beauty and depth out of things. Whereas, what's a story, a narrative, a story, a deep story? Like, it's a machine for it can capture the non-propositional, that which you can't just boil down to a fact or a measurable thing. It can capture a non-measurable signal. You can sense it. It's like in your gut, but you can't see it. It's like more like, it's not that it's invisible. Sometimes it's invisible, but it's deeper. It's non-propositional. Okay, so this is what we're going for with the narrative way of seeing things, and children as Han, Byung-Chul Han, citing Walter Benjamin or Walter Benjamin, says that the children have this insight because, why? They let their imagination go. They have this instinctual way. Whereas as you get older, you sort of train like, no, don't trust those stories. Don't trust. Yeah, I'll put away those imaginative impulses. And it's also like taking risks, because in a non-narrative modern view, it's like, don't take any risks. Control it. Control how you are born. Control how you die. Use technology. Whereas take risks, it's like, okay, I'm not sure when I'm going to have the baby. I'm not sure when I'm going to die. I kind of surrender to nature. And like, I'm in nature's hands. Whereas, no, I don't want to, I'm going to control that. I want to choose the date. I want to choose how. I want to choose, like, does my baby have like super genes to be like super intelligent? So I'm going to put the right genes in there. I'm going to put the right, whereas, no, in the risk, I don't know what genes it's going to have. It might be mentally retarded. It's going to be a beautiful baby. I take that risk. And so, and we're wired for mystery stories. Think about how we love mystery stories, where there's it's incomplete. You don't understand. You accept that there's limits. I don't know everything. You accept limits, whereas the control is like, no limits. I want total control. I want total control, no limits. And like, with AI, I've got all the facts right at my fingertips, right at that moment. I don't need to. Everything's like right there, total control. And now I'm going to have like an AI assistant giving me all that control. And so, for example, like, think about like memorizing. Like, there's this mythologist, an expert on myths, and his name's Martin Shaw. And I was just listening to him. I'm a super fan of this guy. He's a British guy, lives in a small town in Western England, but he's also a philosopher and studies myth, all kinds of myths from all over the world. He's an expert on them. Writes about myths, lives myths. He goes out into the woods, and they like tell stories around fires. I want to go. I want to go. Maybe we can just do one here, but like, yeah, the stories are meant to be like told in this group of like, 50 people around a fire, and you're sort of taking that risk. Anyway, but he says you memorize things because what? You don't need to memorize anything anymore, because you can just look it up. You can have AI tell you it. You can have Google tell you it. But there's something beautiful about accepting that limitation of memorizing, embracing I'm gonna stay faithful to that text. I'm gonna memorize that text, that poem, and so forth. So this is all related to narrative. Now let's throw in another idea here. So you have the narrative and you have the non-narrative over here, right? But let's throw in anxiety for a second here, because the world, at least my world, and I think most of us have a lot of anxiety. And so what do you do in a non-narrative mode? You try to master it by technology. Use drugs. Use to entertainment. Distract yourself. Binge watch Netflix. Your control. But then, in the narrative way, well, you tell stories for one thing. So you want to, so this, and you're with others. So you're gathered. You're in a gathering, and so people gather and tell stories. That can be, like as I said, around a campfire, or and you're building a relationship. It can be like in a mosque. It can be a temple, and so forth. And so you're creating these bonds through stories, by shared stories. Whereas you can just stay alone, just be individualistic. Individualistic. That's the modern way. Focus on me, focus on my choices. I want maximum choices, and so. But then we want to bond to a transcendent story. And transcendent can mean different things. Something that's beyond. That's what transcendent means. It's non-narrative. It's non-propositional. It's kind of ineluctable or undescribable. That's transcendent. Sometimes that's religious. Sometimes it's philosophical. Sometimes it's artistic. And so this is all kind of in the background here. So let's then, let me come back over here for a second. Yeah. So let's talk about the book. And let's use this as our kind of test case of Hans' narrative crisis idea. I'm also getting these ideas from Martin Shaw, as I was saying, stuff about myth, that humans, we're wired for myth. He makes a distinction between myth and story. And he says, a story is a more general thing. Like, I can tell a story right now. I'm telling you a story about here I am. It's my day off because of the ice storm, or it wasn't even that much of a storm, but anyway. And so that's my story. But a myth, it's a story that not just one person can't tell it. It has to have been told over thousands of years, orally. And so that's why we have them kind of captured they were eventually written down, kind of in that axial age, that era between 200 and 800 BCE, before the Common Era, in the Buddhist tradition, and the Hindu tradition, and the Hebrew tradition, and the Greek tradition. These were written down as Aesop's fables and the Norse myths and so forth. The Hebrew Bible, the Genesis account of creation, or the Epic of Gilgamesh, or the Bhagavad Gita. Am I saying that right? In the Hindu tradition, I haven't read that, but I've heard about it. Gosh, I'm rambling here. So let's jump into some scenes from The Lord of the Rings to try to make sense of all this stuff. Isn't this cool stuff? I love this stuff. Anyway, I was going to do a song. We'll see if I have time for a song. And so getting back to the text, let's jump into the Lord of the Rings here. And we have this thing of the ring. And as I was saying, I was suggesting that the ring is this desire for power, for control, for technological total control. And here we see Frodo tempted to put on the ring. See my notes here, it says Frodo tempted to put on the ring. So they're getting pursued by a black rider. We'll talk about the black riders in a minute. And, right, they're hiding. The sound of the hoofs drew nearer. Just in time, he threw himself down on a patch of long grass behind a tree that overshadowed the road. Then he lifted his head and peered cautiously above one of the great roots. Around the corner came a black horse, no hobbit pony, but a full-sized horse, and on it sat a large man who seemed to crouch in the saddle, wrapped in a great black cloak and hood, so that only his boots and the high stirrups showed below. His face was shadowed and invisible. When it reached the tree and was level with Frodo, the horse stopped. The riding figure sat quite still with his head bowed, as if listening. From inside the hood came the noise as of someone sniffing to catch an elusive scent. The head turned from side to side of the road. A sudden unreasoning fear of discovery laid hold of Frodo, and he thought of his ring. He hardly dared to breathe, and yet the desire to get it out of his pocket became so strong that he began slowly to move his hand. He felt that he had only to slip it on, and then he would be safe. And then he would be safe. The advice of Gandalf seems absurd. Bilbo had used the ring, and I am still in the Shire, he thought, as his hand touched the chain on which it hung. At that moment the rider sat up and shook the reins. The horse stepped forward, walking slowly at first, and then breaking into a quick trot. Frodo crawled to the edge of the road and watched the rider until he dwindled into the distance. And so Frodo has a desire to use the ring. He's like, Gandalf told me this limitation. I shouldn't use the ring. That's silly. I mean, come on. Bilbo used it. And so this ring, and obviously this is just a little scene, and we're going to find out more later, but it tempts him to use it. And that's how technology works. Oh, we've got this atomic bomb. Use it. And we did. And we killed hundreds of thousands of people. Or we've got this AI. Use it. We've got this temptation, control. And then you've got the Black Rider, and then it turns out, the Black Rider showed up earlier, and so here's, what do you mean? Said Frodo sharply, looking at him in astonishment. Why didn't you speak up before? I have only just remembered, sir. It was like this. When I got back to our hole yesterday evening with the key, my dad, he says to me, "Hello, Sam." He says, "I thought you were away with Mr. Frodo this morning. There's been a strange customer asking for Mr. Baggins at Bag End, and he's only just gone. I've sent him on to Buckleberry. Not that I liked the sound of him. He seemed mighty put out when I told him Mr. Baggins had left his old home for good. He hissed at me, he did. It gave me quite a shudder. What sort of fellow was he, says I to the gaffer. I don't know, he says. But he wasn't a hobbit. He was tall and black-like, and he stooped over me. I reckon it was one of the big folk from foreign parts. He spoke funny. I couldn't stay to hear more, blah, blah, blah. So they have these Black Riders. And one of the things about the Black Riders, and this will become clearer as we go, is that they're evil. They're sent to get the ring. They're sent to get, because the Dark Lord Sauron wants the ring. They're sent by him. He wants that control. It's going to give him total control. And they're evil, and they're kind of like ghosts. Like ghosts, I'd say, because they're still there. But you notice they're kind of relying on the horse. Because there's sort of like, let me put this word up here for a second, diaphanous. I hope I'm spelling that correctly. They're like super thin, like they've been worn away to almost nothing, almost like a ghost. And the idea that Tolkien is playing with here is that as a person kind of gives into evil, they become less and less real. And on the contrary, when someone, courageously does the right thing, does the good thing, they become more real. They become more wedded to reality. And isn't that the case that, like, in a certain sense, like when you or I give in to some temptation, whether it's for control or like be a control freak or something like that, like we kind of get stuck in ourself and we're sort of losing touch with what's real. Anyway, that's the idea that that Tolkien is giving us. And then you have these elves. So it's going to run to these elves. And there's a guy named Gildor. And so like they kind of get past a black rider, and then luckily enough, there's these elves that show up. This is page 78. And they hear them singing. Singing is significant. Song is a kind of patterned speech that's more meaningful. They sing this stuff. They see Frodo. He says these are the high elves. They see Frodo. They know him. Hail, Frodo, he cried. You are abroad late, or are you perhaps lost? Then he called aloud to the others, and all the company stopped and gathered around. This is indeed wonderful, they said. The 3 hobbits in a wood at night. We have not seen such a thing since Bilbo went away. What is the meaning of it? Etc. So they talk. Let's get a little further into this. And how do you know my name? Asked Frodo. We know many things. We've seen you often before with Bilbo, though you may not have seen us. Who are you and who is your lord? I'm Gildor, answered their leader, the elf who had first hailed him. Gildor Inglorion of the house of Finrod. We are exiles, and most of our kindred have long ago departed, and we too are now only tarrying here a while, ere we return over the great sea. So the elves are leaving Earth, Middle Earth. But some of our kinfolk dwell still in this piece of Rivendell. Come now, Frodo, tell us what you are doing, for we see that there's some shadow of fear upon you. So they figured out black riders. Oh, wow. They're like, oh, black riders, sounds pretty bad. And then they, here's just a description of their talking. Let's get to the bottom of the page here. So where are you going? Asked Frodo. For tonight we go to the woods on the hills above Woodhall. It is some miles, but you shall have rest at the end of it, and we'll shorten your journey tomorrow. Now they marched on again in silence and passed like shadows and faint lights, for elves, even more than hobbits, could walk when they wished without sound or footfall. Pippin soon began to feel sleepy and staggered once or twice, but each time a tall elf at his side put out his arm and saved him from a fall. Sam walked along at Frodo's side as if in a dream, with an expression on his face, half of fear and half of astonished joy. And so they're talking. The elves are figuring out, like, there's something going on here. And then they say, hey, there's an enemy coming. This is page 82. Frodo says, it is. But I thought my going was a secret known only to Gandalf and my faithful Sam. He looked down at Sam, who was snoring gently. The secret will not reach the enemy from us. The enemy? The enemy, said Frodo. Then you know why I'm leaving the Shire. I do not know for what reason the enemy is pursuing you, answered Gildor, but I perceive that he is, strange indeed though that seems to me. And I warn you that peril is now both before you and behind you, and upon either side. You mean the riders? I feared that they were servants of the enemy. What are the Black Riders? Has Gandalf told you nothing? Nothing about such creatures. Then I think it's not for me to say more, blah, blah, blah. So, and then we have a further discussion by Gildor, where he wrote the word purpose. Is this a chance or is this purpose? And so he says, take such friends as are trusty and willing. Now you should be grateful, for I do not give this counsel gladly. The elves have their own labors and their own sorrows. So the elves are leaving Earth. It's their time to leave. They've got to go back to their homeland. And they are little concerned with the ways of hobbits or any other creatures upon Earth. Our paths cross theirs seldom, by chance or purpose. In this meeting there may be more than chance, but the purpose is not clear to me, and I fear to say too much. Aha, so he thinks there's a purpose. He thinks there's a kind of a destiny, there's a kind of a historical arc that was like, this is supposed to happen. This is like a kind of a destiny again. We talk about destiny. And so we have a purpose, not a chance, a purpose. This was a destiny, a mission. And humans and hobbits, who are kind of short humans, need a mission. This is kind of the narrative. Like when you have a narrative, it kind of helps you figure out, like, what's the mission? What's the purpose? And I'm going to jump way ahead here, because then we have Old Man Willow jumping ahead. And so they are going to run into this forest, and they get really sleepy because the air and it's hot and this. So the trees are active. These are active trees. And are trees active? I would say that they are. I mean, more than we realize. We tend to think, oh, they just sit there and do nothing. No, trees are biological living beings. They act in unison with other trees. They create forests. They create a whole ecosystem with all these different organisms around them in a forest. So this is a forest. And somehow they maybe through spores or through the heat, they're like making these hobbits fall asleep, and then they they actually do something. And so Pippin's gonna vanish. Let's see, where is this? This is page 115. Point to this here. They went around to the other side of the tree, and then Sam understood that the click that he had heard, Pippin had vanished. The crack by which he had laid himself had closed together so that not a chink could be seen. Merry was trapped. Another crack had closed around about his waist. His legs lay outside, but the rest of him was inside a dark opening, the edges of which gripped him like a pair of pincers. And then they hear laughter. The hardly perceptible shiver ran through the stem and up into the branches. The leaves rustled and whispered, but with a sound now of faint and far off laughter. So the trees are laughing at them as they catch them. And then they start to build a fire, and then of course the Mary says, "Don't do that. They're gonna kill me if you don't put out that fire." So they put out the fire, and then the weirdest guy shows up, who's super mysterious, but I love this guy. His name's Tom Bombadil. Some people hate him because he's like so weird and sounds like a little kid, and so like he says stuff like this: Hey, come, merry dole, derry dole, my darling. I'm losing my voice. I'm going to take a quick drink here. Excuse me. And in fact, I should kind of sing this. Let me try. This is going to be embarrassing, and it's going to sound really stupid. Hey, come, merry dole, derry dole, my darling. Light goes the weather wind and the feathered starling. Down along the hill, shining in the sunlight, waiting on the doorstep for the cold starlight. There my pretty lady is, river woman, River woman's daughter, slender as a willow wand, clearer than the water. Old Tom Bombadil, water lilies bringing, comes hopping home again. Can you hear him singing? And so he's singing, and you're like, okay, that's weird. And it's kind of like childlike. And it's kind of like, hey, merry dole, derry dole. Like, that's not even a word. I'm sorry. Hey, come, merry dole, derry dole. Like, duh, sounds really stupid. But what they theorize later, and I'll see if I can find it, it's like, okay, what's this derry dole BS? It's words of wonder. So instead of saying, wow, amazing, cool, he's singing, and he's singing these nonsense words. They seem like nonsense words, but they're words of expressing wonder. So it's like a child, and maybe you, when you were a kid, made up a song and sang it all the time. Like my brother had this song, I still remember it because he sang it all the time. My little brother, and it was the Footsie Foot song. It's a footsie foot, da ba da doop be doop. It's a footsie foot, da ba doop da yoop. It's a footsie foot, and it kept going, and like, okay, like kids do that. They just express wonder and make up songs that seem like nonsense, but they're expressions of this wonder. And then we have the house of Tom Bombadil. He takes them to their house, thank God. He saves them from the tree. And his wife, Goldberry, the river daughter, lets them in. She's talking to them. She says, come, dear folk, she said, taking Frodo by the hand. Laugh and be merry. I am Goldberry, daughter of the river. Then lightly she passed them, and closing the door, she turned her back to it, with her white arms spread across it. Let us shut out the light, she said, for you are still afraid, perhaps, of mist and tree shadows in deep water and untamed things. Fear nothing, for tonight you are under the roof of Tom Bombadil. The hobbies looked at her in wonder. There's that word wonder. And she looked at each of them and smiled. Fair Lady Goldberry, said Frodo at last, feeling his heart moved with a joy that he did not understand. There's that joy. He didn't understand it. He stood as he had at times stood enchanted, there's that word enchanted, by fair elven voices. But the spell, notice the spell, that was now laid upon him was different. Less keen and lofty was the delight, but deeper and nearer to mortal heart, marvelous and yet not strange. Fair Lady Goldberry, he said again, now the joy that was hidden in the songs we heard is made plain to me. O slender as a willow wand, O clearer than clear water, O reed by the living pool, fair river daughter. O springtime and summertime and spring again after, O wind on the waterfall and the leaves' laughter. Suddenly he stopped and stammered, overcome with surprise to hear himself saying such things. But Goldberry laughed. Welcome, she said. I had not heard that folk of the Shire were so sweet-tongued, but I see you are an elf friend. The light is in your eyes, and the ring is in your voice tells it. This is a merry meeting. That's a word, merry. Merry is a kind of key word here. Sit down and wait for the master of the house. He will not be long. He's tending your tired beasts. The hobbits sat down gladly in a low rush-seated chairs, while Goldberry busied herself about the table, and their eyes followed her, for the slender grace of her movements filled them with quiet delight. From somewhere behind the house came the sound of singing. Every now and again they caught many a derry dole and a merry dole and a ring-a-ding-dillo, the words repeated. Old Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow, bright blue his jacket is, and his boots are yellow. Fair lady, said Frodo again after a while, tell me, if my asking does not seem foolish, who is Tom Bombadil? He is, said Goldberry, staying her swift movements and smiling. Frodo looked at her questioningly. "He is as you have seen him," she said in answer to his look. "He is the master of the wood, water, and hill." "Then all this strange land belongs to him?" "No, indeed," she answered, and her smile faded. "That would indeed be a burden." And she added in a low voice as if to herself, "The trees and the grasses and all things growing or living in the land belong each to themselves. Tom Bombadil is the master. No one has ever caught old Tom walking in the forest, wading in the water, leaping on the hilltops under light and shadow. He has no fear. Tom Bombadil is master." A door opened and in came Tom Bombadil. And so we have these statements, "He is," which is just kind of saying like, it doesn't say what he is, he just says he is, which also is in a kind of Hebrew or Judeo-Christian context, an echo of "I am who am," which was the word or the sentence that God used when he was talking to Moses, and God said, "What's your name?" And he says, "Tell them I am who am sent you." Yahweh. This becomes the root of the word which we call Yahweh. And so not that this is God, and I don't think that's the point, but that, anyways, he's somehow connected to God, or like kind of an angel. I think that makes more sense, and I've studied this a bit, that there are angelic beings, what we would spiritual beings that serve the deity or the gods or God, and in the Tolkien tradition, a Maya, M-A-I-A, is a kind of regular angel, and is it a Vaya? I think it's a Vaya is an archangel. So he's like kind of a lesser angel, and what we might call him is a spirit of the forest. And okay, there's no spirit of the forest. I know there's no such thing as like a ghost or a spirit of a forest. But think about this: when you go to a forest, like I've been to a forest, like in Colorado, and you see these mountains and these forests, and they're like enchanted. And then you see a forest that has been ruined because they tore down a bunch of trees to like put a road there, like and you can see like they killed the spirit of that forest by like creating or taking away the ecosystem, the kind of, it's not just the trees, but it's like the whole interaction of the trees and the soil and the dirt and the snow and the organisms and the birds and the bears. Like there's a kind of spirit that you can see when it's flourishing, like it's just this beautiful forest. And then you can see it when it's kind of taken away because humans or others ruin it by kind of not respecting it, by not taking care of it. And so there's a kind of duty for humans who have all this power to respect that natural spirit, so to speak. And obviously, it's not like we can call it like an ecological principle or some kind of interaction between the organisms in that environment. Yeah, those are all the same thing. But I guess I'm just calling it a spirit. You call it Tom Bombadil, and yeah. So he doesn't own those things, but he's master of them. He kind of holds them together in a certain sense. So yeah. So there's a lot here, and I'm rambling. And I brought my guitar, and dare I play it? Let me see if I can do this without ruining my setup here. So here's the guitar, and I was watching the Stranger Things episodes of season 5, and I was also watching YouTube videos about it, trying to make sense of it. And to me, isn't it the case that Stranger Things, those of you who watch it, it's like the Lord of the Rings? I mean, there's like this other world, an upside down, and you have like kind of forces of good and evil, and the children, there's, they can be corrupted, but the children have a power against the evil. Because why? Because they have imagination, because they have a closeness to each other, because they play, because they have these things that adults don't have. And I can see if I can do this without messing up my strings here. And I had the chords and lyrics. Kate Bush running up that hill. And so there's this song that keeps Max, character Max, going. And I'm going to try and sing it. And so, let's see. It's not that easy to sing. Shoot, this is going to hit the string. Let me put it over here. See if this works. Maybe I'll just unplug it. It doesn't hurt me. Yeah. You wanna make me feel how it feels. Yeah, yo. Do you wanna know it doesn't hurt me? Do you wanna hear about the deal that I'm making? It's you and me. If I only could make a deal with God, I'd get him to swap our places. Be running up that road, running up that hill, be running up that building. Say if I only could. Don't wanna hurt me, yeah, yo. But see how deep the bullet lies, yeah, yo. Unaware I'm tearing you asunder. Oh, but there is thunder in our hearts. Is there so much hate for the ones we love? Yeah. Oh, tell me, we both matter, don't we? It's you and me. It's you and me who won't be unhappy. And if I only could make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places. Be running up that road, running up that hill, running up that building. Say if I only could. It's you and me. It's you and me won't be unhappy. And if I only could make a deal with God and get him to swap our places, be running up that road, running up that hill, running up with no problems. So if I only could make a deal with God, I'd get him to swap our places. Be running up that road, be running up that hill with no problems. Say if I only could, I'd make a deal with God. I'd get him to swap our places. Be running up that road, be running up that hill with no no problems. If I only could be running up that hill with no problems. If I only could be running up that hill. So if I only could be running up that hill. And so there's a lot to be said about this song, but it is when Max is she's running away from Vecna, who's trying to control her and dominate her, and it's her memory of a good memory of a friendship and a love and a song that connects her to that memory, that allows her to run up that hill to kind of achieve a higher freedom. And so she it starts off, it doesn't hurt me. Do you want to hear about the deal? She's making this deal with God. Swap our places. Okay, so we're connected, and you're going to run up that hill, running up that building. If I only could. And so there's thunder in our hearts. Is there so much hate for the ones we love? Oh, tell me. We both matter, don't we? So yeah, we matter. Things matter. It's you and me. It's you and me. We won't be unhappy. And so she is, using the song and she's a child. The song, and she connects to the ones she loves, and that's what frees her from Vecna, who's this kind of force, and is kind of like the Black Riders, a force that's like tempting you to like think about bad thoughts and to blame yourself and to see like things are limiting me. I don't want those limits. Like this is kind of a desire for power, and certainly Vecna, Henry, he just wants all this power. He has had this traumatic past. I haven't seen the last episode yet, so I've only seen part of it, so I don't tell me. But so I'll talk about that, those of you who are Stranger Things fans, about the ending. But he's twisted, and he has kind of in some ways gone over to evil. So anyway, that's my take for today. Take that as you will. Hopefully, if you got through this video, you're a very patient person. And hopefully that song didn't ruin your day, but maybe even made your day a little bit. You can go back and listen to the Kate Bush version, which is much better. But yeah, that's what I've got.